They say, well, they have lived with these atrocities, meaning these Christians, for centuries. Let them either leave their homeland or let them stand up and become equipped with military to defend themselves, with military equipment. First of all, we as Christians have always taken the love route, the passive route, but enough is enough. We have to be equipped to defend ourselves. The Kurds are equipped to defend themselves. The Iraqi military has weapons. Why shouldn't the Christians and Yazidis be equipped to defend themselves?
And that was Iraqi Christian Relief Council President Juliana Tamarezi on Midpoint here on Newsmax TV with Ed Berliner last week, talking about the plight of Christians in the Middle East. Back now on America's Forum with Miranda Khan, I'm J.D. Hayworth.
ISIS has systematically rounded up and, as you've heard, killed hundreds of Christians and destroyed dozens of churches. Their brutality has also sent thousands fleeing from their homes, all of them looking for safety.
To go in depth on this story now, we turn to a man who has a deep understanding of the plight of Assyrian and other Christians in the Mideast, former United States Army Colonel Sargis Sangari, who is Skyping in from Chicago, and staying with us from Newsmax LA, our good friend and Newsmax contributor, Larry Elder. Colonel, we appreciate your time. You just heard Ms. Tamarezi suggesting we should arm those Christian groups. Sargis, do you agree?
I do agree. Thank you very much, Congressman, first of all, for having me there. And Miranda, it's a pleasure to talk to you. The Assyrians should get weapons and arms directly, period. And they should be looking at self-governance for themselves. We've tried other paths and routes, and they don't work. They have not worked. When the Assyrians were initially asked to put them on their weapons, and this request had come to them in 2001, they were the first to do it. They wanted a unified Iraq. The reality was the Kurds armed themselves, the Shia armed themselves, and the Sunnis armed themselves. We're the first to take the lead to support U.S. efforts in the region to keep Iraq as a whole. As you see currently, with the changes that are taking place in the Middle East, there's no way that that regime is staying together to include the central government. They can't even unify on fighting in Tikrit, where some of them recently just pulled out their militia forces. For us to have to be individuals that stay and wait until the central government gets money, possibly the Kurds get money, and hope that we get some of the crumbs, it just doesn't work. We have a military on the ground. That military does not take that much to sustain. For $5 million, you can probably have a 10,000-man force on the ground fighting ISIS and probably clearing out their historical lands. That is a very cheap price tag if you want to go ahead and be able to secure that region.
Colonel, Christians have lived in this area for hundreds of years. Why the persecution now? Is it because of the rise of ISIS, because of the rise of Al-Qaeda? Why now?
Persecution has been ongoing. The Assyrians have been eradicated. I mean, we're going back 35 years. You know, the 100th anniversary of the first genocide of the 20th century is taking place in April. That specific celebration was when the Armenians, the Greeks, and the Assyrians were all massacred. The Ottoman Turks were the main political entity that pushed it. But for us, be honest, in the northern areas, it was the Kurds at that time, 100 years ago, that actually were the ones who were involved in the eradication of the Assyrians. Today now, we've moved on. We're at a point where we're ready to work with our neighbors. But our neighbors and regional partners have other goals. And their goal is not to support Assyrians for self-governance in their own region. And that being the case, we need to start arming these individuals so they can defend themselves. If you can't defend yourself, you're no good. You might as well just be eradicated.
Colonel, I have to ask you, do you think just the U.S. should arm the Christians? And are you concerned at all that these weapons that we send over could end up in the wrong hands?
Well, all the weapons you have been sending over have been ending up in the wrong hands. That's just, I will tell you, the Assyrian, last year, the Assyrian military on the ground, that specific force is called the Wolf Military currently, but they're really the Assyrian army. Those guys were fighting in Syria in support of both force efforts that were also fighting in Iraq. They still are.
Sargis, if we're going to try to fix your audio, we're having a little bit of a difficulty there on your Skype in from Chicago. Our technical staff will work with you. We hope to have more with Sargis Sangari, a retired colonel in the U.S. Army, making the case for arming Christians, Assyrian Christians and other sects who have been attacked, who have been persecuted in the Mideast. At this juncture, let me call on our good friend at Newsmax LA, Larry Elder, for his insights and analysis. Larry, we have heard some compare this to the new Holocaust, mindful of that horrible chapter in the 20th century in World War II. Do you believe, for all intents and purposes, a Holocaust of Christians is underway in the Middle East?
It certainly seems to me that to be the case. I remember the Yazidis were given a choice to accept a status as a second-class citizen and pay a tax. And then when they asked what the tax was, ISIS said, I'm sorry, the tax is no longer valid. We're going to wipe you out. So I don't know what other word you can use for it other than a Holocaust.
Unfortunately, Sargis Sangari will not be able to rejoin us. We're still having some technical difficulties. We do hope to have him back. And it was very interesting to listen to the arguments now being made, and we have seen it really not only in the United States, but even from the Vatican. Pope Francis, who thought of perhaps as a bit of an iconoclast or a maverick, if such terms could ever be associated with the papacy, the pontiff in the past couple of months has made the intellectual case for the use of force to protect Christianity and Christians. Larry, how important do you think that is to get that kind of affirmation from the Vatican?
Well, it's very important, and a lot of people feel that religious leaders like the Pope were a little late in coming out and saying something. So I'm very happy that he's spoken out very strongly about this. Given his stature in the world, obviously it's very important.
Larry, I want to get your thoughts. We've heard reports of former military men and women heading back over there to help some of these Christians. What are your thoughts? Is that dangerous?
Very quickly, Larry, about 20 seconds on this, please, sir.
Well, of course it's dangerous, but it does show you the value and the import of doing this. A lot of Christians feel that they are literally under siege and the world is ignoring them. As I mentioned, the Pope has spoken out, but a lot of people feel it was a lot too late and frankly not loud enough.
And of course, we still await to hear from many American Christians to see if action will be taken. Larry, thanks a bunch. Stand by. We'll have more with you right now. Our Newsmax National Weather Update from Jessica Reyes.
Hello, I'm Jessica Reyes, and here's your weather from coast to coast. We'll start off by the northwest, where it's pretty much unsettled for your Tuesday. Not as warm today for the southwest, in LA and even into parts of San Francisco. But the good news is we are dealing with mainly sunny skies. That's always a good thing. Meanwhile, by the Great Lakes for today, we are starting to see somewhat of a warm up. I mean, we are officially within the spring months in Minneapolis as well. Some areas will see temperatures in the 80s into parts of South Dakota. And then by the southeast or by the Gulf of Mexico, pretty much, showers and thunderstorms will continue to push through, and that will pretty much extend into the northeastern portion of the country. Now, the further inland you go, you may see some snow through there, so take it easy on the roadways. As for your daytime highs, here are some of them for your Tuesday.
Spring is in the air.
Yes, indeed. And the song stylings of Miranda Kahn.
Yeah,
even
I don't
as
know
the
about that.
meteorological prediction and forecast comes to us from Jessica Reyes. Jessica, we thank you very much for that. And anything else you want to sing this morning?
No, I'll stop right there. It's really just a poor attempt.
Just as springtime, it sounded lovely.
It's just nice. You know, the birds are out chirping. It's nice to see everything's in bloom.
And
does that make you happy?
As nice as springtime is, something very curious and possibly very dangerous yesterday at the National Security Agency front gate. We're going to talk about that with a former New York Police Department detective. Strange story. We'll have it for you next.